Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Lydia Winkler, this is Marco Nelson, and we are the founders of RentCheck. RentCheck is a solution that standardizes move-in and move-out property inspections. A little backstory about how RentCheck was born. Let me tell you what happened to me. After my first year of law school at Tulane, it came time to move. 30 days came and went, and I never got my security deposit back. I decided it would be an injustice to my legal education not to pursue it. So I represented myself and sued my landlord in small claims court. I submitted time-stamped photos into evidence that showed the move-out condition of my apartment. I won the judgment, but it took over a year and a half to recover those funds. And I realized this is not a comprehensive solution for the masses. So our initial hypothesis was that renters want a way to protect themselves from unjust deductions from security deposits. And they would use an app to capture the move-in and move-out property inspections with time-stamped photos. And so from there, we looked to the business model canvas, and we assumed that our initial customer segment was renters, and that the value proposition for them was protection against unjust deductions and time-stamped photos. And we figured a key channel was a mobile app because everyone has a smartphone. But we had a lot of assumptions to figure out. And so we got out of the building and we spoke to hundreds of renters. And 85% of them said they would use an app to document the move-in and move-out condition of an apartment. And 70% of them said they would pay up to $50 for that app. And so we went back to the canvas, and we realized we had another value proposition for renters. They want to document properties, but they don't know how. So what we do is we provide a guided walkthrough of how to properly document a move-in inspection. And then a key resource was an app developer. And lucky for us, Marco's an app developer. And so from there, we still wanted to dig deeper and validate and make sure that this was a big problem. And it is. 45% of renters will have a dispute with their landlord in their renter lifetime. And 30% of renters moving each year will lose some or all their security deposit, which is almost $2.5 billion annually.
Great job, Lydia. So as she mentioned, we validated that renters would use our product and that it was a massive market, but we still didn't feel like we wanted to move forward and build out that mobile app. So we did a landing page test. We built a simple landing page that showed that the app was live. And we had, in 2 months, we posted in Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. We had 200 visitors, and we had 30 email signups where they'd click through and sign up. So based on that information, we felt like we could move forward and I could start building the app. So I built the app, and we launched an iOS MVP. And in the first 3 months, we had 150 users across 20 states. And then something super surprising happened. As we talked to our users, we found out that 45% of them were landlords and property managers, which was amazing because this is a customer segment we weren't targeting yet. And so we did some further customer discovery to realize that this was a major pivot in our business model. And we interviewed and talked to and did surveys with hundreds of landlords and property managers, and we found that over 80% of them were already documenting properties using a mobile device. And that over 70% of them would prefer that the renter documents the property for them. So we took that validation and we went back to our canvas and documented the pivot with an additional customer segment, additional value propositions, and an additional potential revenue stream, which would be a subscription model based on the number of units they were using in the app. And then as I continued to update the app to work for both renters and landlords, we continued to talk to them, and we had another discovery. There was a lot of complaints and headache around streamlining security deposits. Landlords spend a lot of time opening new deposits, figuring out what deductions to deduct, and then figuring out where to send that deposit once the renter moved out. We found that 70% of them were already opening separate accounts every time they collected a deposit. And we found that almost 40% of landlords and 80% of renters would prefer that we handled that process for them. So we took that pivot and went back to our canvas and added the additional value proposition to it and an additional revenue stream that could be interest on the security deposits we were holding. So right now, our current hypothesis is that RentCheck will help solve the over $36 billion problem of disputes over security deposits by becoming the trusted third party. And the value proposition is, for landlords, I can save time. I can offload the tedious move-in and move-out inspections onto the renter, empowering them, but also holding them accountable. I can also save time streamlining the security deposit process and make money. I can earn almost 10 times more interest on those deposits.
And the value proposition for renters like myself is I save money knowing my security deposit is protected from unjust deductions, so I won't have to take my landlord to small claims court anymore. I also have peace of mind knowing there are organized, time-stamped photos and that I'm going to get my security deposit returned faster. So what does RentCheck look like today? Well, if you're a landlord or a renter, you download our app. We're on Android and iOS. You enter in the property details. You're then prompted to do a guided walkthrough of a full move-in inspection. Once the inspection is complete, renter and landlord can share it with one another and view it on the app. We've been at this just under a year, and we're already solving this problem for landlords and renters in 40 states and 7 countries. And 60% of the properties being added are added by landlords, which means they're using our product for multiple units. This is just one example of how we're testing and validating our hypothesis that landlords are looking for a tool to properly document the move-in and move-out condition of an apartment.
So how big is this opportunity? Well, the property management industry is a $93 billion industry, and half of that industry is our target market, which is small, independent landlords. And with $13 billion in security deposits turning over each year, this is where disputes happen, and this is where RentCheck can step in and solve that pain point and the disputes over those deposits.
So what's our competitive advantage? We're the only solution that brings renters and landlords on one property to do property inspections.
So how do we grow? Well, we've only been out for a little while and have had minimal PR, but we already have major market players coming to us. This includes listing sites because they have a captive audience of both renters and landlords, but there's so many listing sites to put your properties on. Listing sites are looking for additional revenue streams and value propositions they can provide to their users. And then we have moving companies and maintenance companies. These companies are looking to us because it's an additional value they can add to their users to keep them coming back. And then finally, we have insurance companies. Insurance companies write millions of rental insurance policies, and when it comes to adjusting claims, their number one problem is they don't have updated photos of what those properties looked like before that claim. And so this just further validated that we were capturing value that wasn't just important to our users, but to major market players, and these could be key channels to help us grow. So we took that information, went back to our business model canvas, and updated the channels and key partners, and we felt good about moving forward.
So inspections are the first step towards a much larger company vision. Right now, we're honing in on product market fit and testing and validating our most crucial hypothesis that our users are going to pay for our service. And then later this year, we want to test the hypothesis that both renters and landlords want a trusted third party to hold security deposits. And then later next year, we want to implement a rating analysis into RentCheck. You get rated on everything. Your Uber driver rates you as a passenger. You as a passenger rate your driver. You rate your Airbnb host. Your host rates you as a guest. Why should renters and landlords be any different? So we compare better renters with better landlords and vice versa. And then later next year, we want to test the hypothesis that renters want to be able to schedule, report, and pay for all maintenance within one service. And so this way we can be one-stop shopping for all things rent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just towards the end there, you kind of threw in the payment part of it. So I don't understand the revenue model at all, and whether that's even come into play, whether you've tested paying, and so what's that side of the business model?
Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of feedback from our current beta users, and the first revenue stream we're going to roll out is a one-time fee, which includes the move-in and move-out inspection, which would be around $20. And then after that, as we get on landlords and property managers, as they continue to add more multiple properties onto the platform and have lots of inspections, they would move to a monthly subscription fee based on the number of properties they're using on the platform, which would be anywhere from 50 cents to $1.25 per unit per month. And then the last revenue stream, as we collect those deposits and pool them, we'd be able to partner with a financial institute and earn an interest on those deposits. So those are kind of the 3 steps we plan on rolling out as we move forward.
So that last piece, you have 620 users right now, you said?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and they're paying you how much?
We're not charging
pre-revenue.
anything yet.
Okay, so then what is your most critical hypothesis? Because you talked a lot about being one-stop shop for rent and ratings and
Yep.
much larger, and all that's great.
Yep.
But what is the most critical hypothesis that's standing in front of you right now that you have to test
Yep.
immediately without worrying about all that other stuff? What
Yeah,
is it?
that's taking the feedback that we've got on the pricing and actually start charging them. And we're building that in now, and we have to see how we can convert them, which customer segments convert to paying. And so that's what we're focused on in the next month is focusing purely on that to see how many of them convert to paying and which price point, and then what customer segment will convert, so then we can focus on that customer segment and that revenue stream to move forward.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to pick on pricing too. So I think the question is that I think we're all trying to get to is how did you test that? Is it this is willingness to pay, or how was that price testing done?
Yeah. So the first revenue stream, which is the one-time fee, which includes a move and bounce back, that was talking to them and have random surveys. And we have over 500 people that we interviewed and took surveys, and they all we said, how would you expect to pay for this service? What would would you expect to pay monthly, yearly, one-time fee, et cetera? And it pretty much came out that they all would said right now, based on our functionality, a one-time fee, and that they would pay, and it came out anywhere between $5 and $50 per annual, and then we kind of settled around $20 is where we think we would start, and that's what we're going to start testing with
out.
when we roll it out.
So, sorry, thank you. I guess this is personal to me. I've never actually gotten my security deposit back, ever.
A lot of people in there.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I think it's a painful problem. I'm just curious with regards to validation early on, and then also how it's kind of like where your product starts and stops,
Yep.
Are you concerned at all about pivoting out of product market fit?
Yep.
We are, so that's why we know we have a roadmap, and we have we've got a lot of input from our users thus far, because we've had users coming to us, and there's a wide range, especially on the landlord property management side. We have landlords that range from having 5 properties to property management companies that have 40,000 units, and they're all telling us different things they need. And so we're trying to get laser focused on which customer segment are we going after right now, and what's the minimum amount of features, and what will they pay, and trying to focus on that and not get distracted with all the other things. We have a long-term vision, but we know we need to continue to validate that and prove that out and not just jump ahead of ourselves.
Right, so prove that out and validate that, and don't jump ahead of yourself.
Yep.
I think is what the panel is trying to say, right?
Yep. Thank you.
Shari,
Thanks for the feedback.
So I guess the one last question I have is, how do you actually define a user? So you've said you've got 620 or 640 users. What does that mean?
That means that they've signed up and added a property or done an inspection. So like a landlord would set up a property and then either do the inspection themselves, or they would invite a renter to then do an inspection.
So how many on the renter side?
It's about split 45% are landlords, property managers, and about 55% are renters.
And the renters have created an account, and then they've done what that made them a user?
They've added a property or completed an inspection. Yeah.
And what's the entry point? So who starts the process? Is it the landlord or the renter? How does the app kind of get downloaded?
Yeah, so right now it can be started either way. So the renter can download it on their own and do the inspection to protect themselves, and then we encourage them to then share that with their landlords, so we get users on the landlord side that renters are helping us acquire. And then on the landlord side, they can download the app, set up the property, and either invite the renter to perform the inspection, or they can just do the inspection themselves. So it's kind of either or can start the process right now.
One last question. You said you had 200 visitors to your site in over 2 months. I'm curious, what were the different methods you used to try to drive traffic? Because I feel like I try to aim for, if possible, maybe 100 a day, right, to feel more comfortable. So I just noticed it was a long time span for 200. So I'm just curious, what techniques did you use beyond just ads?
Yeah, we didn't run any
No
ads.
ads.
We just posted in Facebook groups. Like, we were part of Tulane Classifieds, which is like a campus Facebook group. So we just posted in Facebook groups whenever we saw people talking about rent or deposits. We would say, hey, like, there's a site for that, or hey, you could use RentCheck to protect your deposit. We just post that, and then people would click on it or like it, and then other people would click on it. So it was kind of just posting in groups.
So actually, just one last question, because I think we're out of time, but we have 2 minutes, okay, great. So you were using the term pivot, and so you're using information to pivot to something else, but did you take other things off the table, or did you just add something else? Because I saw the business model canvas started to get full, and I couldn't tell if those were things that you said, okay, we did that, and we're moving to, based on evidence, to something else, or we saw something else, and so now we're doing 2 things, and now we're doing 3 things. Well, which is it?
So good question.
Okay.
There was a lot of adding, because we initially tackled this problem because I suffered from this problem, and I wanted
Sure.
to solve my own problem. But then we realized to ultimately complete this full solution, one, a third party, we think, needs to hold a security deposit as an arbitrary third party.
What evidence do you have to support that?
Well, we did talk to 70% of renters said they would prefer for a third party to hold the deposit.
And that was just a survey, or did you interview them, or how did you get that
Both
evidence?
interviews and
Both.
surveys.
Okay, great.
And then same with landlords. We talked to them too about what would incentivize them to have a third party, to be willing to allow a third party to use.
Okay.
But then also, we went around this thinking like landlords are the ones in control of the lease. So if we can reach the landlords, we can ultimately help the renter.
Right, but
Because it
did
really
anything,
comes back.
I mean, did anything drop off, or you added on?
Majority of it was changing the way we were going to push the product to market. So adding things, we were going to just go directly to renters. We realized that may be tougher for us to grow. And then
I'm sorry,
we
maybe
realized,
I'm asking, so
Yeah.
let me ask this question. In the center, you had, I think at last count, 4 value propositions.
Yeah.
Right now, how many do you have that you're actively pursuing in the business model canvas?
three
Okay.
main ones. Yeah,
Thank you,
which solve both of them.
thank you.
Thank you, RentCheck. That's time.